The Rams made a killer trade that's going to give them more money to spend in free agency. Should they spend some of that money on Davante Adams? And the Rams release a cornerback that we thought was going to contribute to this team. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just completed his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we've got trades that we have to grade. We've got a update on Cooper Kupp from Les Snead. The Rams release a player that both of us were high on at one point. And should the Rams sign Davante Adams? And let's get right into it, Travis, because lots of news to get into. And it starts with Jonah Jackson. So the Rams were able to pull off a trade for Jonah Jackson. Of course, it doesn't become official until March 12th, but the Rams allowed him to pursue a trade, and they got a deal done with the Chicago Bears. And it was for a 6th-round pick in 2025. And you just look at this deal, you're like, okay, you're giving up on your big free agent signing from last year, $51 million contract. And do you feel good about that? You feel great just because the Rams will save $14.6 million in cap space because the Bears are taking on Jackson's entire contract. That is not the prorated signing bonus, but that means the Bears are going to pay the $9 million salary, the $8.5 million roster bonus. So you are really getting a team absorbing basically a contract that you didn't like just because you have a Bo Limmer that you picked up in the 6th round that is playing center for you. So this is a just absolute great get out of jail free card type of trade for the Rams.
It literally is the best case possible when it came to trying to move on from this. There's a couple of things going on here. Number one, clearly the Chicago Bears feel like they need to get Caleb Williams some help up front, that they went and they did what they did with Jonah Jackson. They went and got the Tooney from Kansas City, and they're trying to give Caleb Williams what he needs in Chicago. They're kind of doubling down on their future with him. So they needed to upgrade that offensive line. But like you said, Doug, this is the result of a couple of different things. Number one, that the Rams got anything for Jonah Jackson is extraordinary. A 6th-round pick. I know it's a day 3 pick. I understand that, but the Rams have done pretty well on day 3. The Rams have found a lot of good players in the 6th round. The Rams have kind of made some hay in those later rounds. The reason they were able to move on from Jackson as quickly as they were, as you mentioned, was because they found a starter in the 7th round as a rookie in Bo Limmer at center. That's why they could do what they did. That it gives them some financial flexibility is great news as well. That's something that they can take advantage of in a variety of ways. But I think for me, at least, maybe the most interesting is the wrong word. I've mentioned this a few times, and the everydayers will recognize what I'm about to say. But one of the things that I like the most about this Rams team, that I like the most about the Rams brass, that I like whether it's the coaching staff, the front office, the executives, the whole group of them, when they miss, they move on. They don't do the thing where they keep trying to make the thing that clearly doesn't work. That's what bad teams do. It's like, well, we spent all this money. We got to find a way to make this work. We gave them a 3-year deal. We got to find a way to make. No, it didn't work. They found a better player in Bo Limmer. They missed. Move on. Get to the next guy. And I think that shows a great deal of organizational maturity, for lack of a better expression. And it just shows that they're committed to playing the best guys, not the guys that make the most money. And I think that's always the right decision.
For sure. They're not that franchise, right? I mean, if they go to a movie and they don't like it, they're not going to just say, "Oh, I paid for the movie. I'm going to stay and watch the whole thing." They're like, "No, this movie sucks. I'm out." Like,
right.
Like they're that team, And I think you look at Jonah Jackson, it was still a worthwhile signing. The potential was certainly there, and they were trying to solidify an offensive line because they just went to a completely different scheme with gap scheme and duo and just trying to be a little more physical up front, but it just did not work. And as you point out, the reason why this move feels even better for them is because you are paying a starter in Bo Limmer. You found the 6th round, $1.3 million.
Yep.
On top of that, you're saving $14.6 million, and now that gives the Rams $54.6 million in cap space this offseason. You still have to finish the deals with Alec Jackson and Matthew Stafford, but now you get some more money to put talent around Matthew Stafford and continue to build a roster that was very, very close to making a surprise run to the Super Bowl last season. And the interesting thing, too, is, like I said, the Bears, they're taking on that $8.5 million roster bonus. Typically, that is the team's responsibility that's trading away, that's offloading the player, and they're not worrying about that. So it's beautiful. It's a major win for the Rams.
Look, I don't think anybody's ever going to get confused that the Bears are the best run team in the NFL. They, like you said, that was one of those things that said, wait, let me read that again. I couldn't have heard that right. There's no way they're picking that part of it up. And that's what it was. It was surprising to be sure, but I think that's one of those, hey, we'll take Jonah Jackson and we'll also pick up the roster, but okay, cool. And then you hang up the phone and you don't pick it up again. Like you said, you do it, we're going to go from there. So the Rams might have gotten away with one right there. I'm excited to see what comes next. It's little stuff like this. Like they missed on Jackson. It happens. You're not going to bat 1,000 in free agency. You're going to miss some here and there. That's not the end of the world. But moving on from it and reallocating those resources into places where you hope to get a little bit better is super exciting. And, I haven't seen the Rams do anything so far this offseason that leads me to believe they're going to be a worse team than they were last year. They got the tackle figured out. They got the quarterback figured out. They freed up a little money. And I know we're going to talk about Cooper Kupp here coming up in a little bit. I feel like they're getting out of that at about the right time. So as far as I can tell, all systems are go right now with the Rams.
For sure. And they only take on $5.6 million in dead money. Like I said, freeze up that $14.6 million. You get the 6th round pick. You have Bo Limmer. By the way, was there ever a movie that you left early? For me, it was my mom when I was in 1st grade took me to see He Got Game because I was a big basketball fan with Spike Lee because she thought it was like a basketball movie. Yeah. And it just wasn't that movie. She also took me to see Any Given Sunday when I was really young. And it wasn't that kind of movie. So she kept taking me to these sports movies that she thought were these good feel-good movies, and they just weren't that, if you know what I mean. And it was a lot of firsts for me seeing those movies at young age, but those are the two that I remember leaving. I think I'd left The Predator too, in 2018, because they kind of butchered that. But anything for you?
The one that I remember, and it's actually a really good movie. I saw it again later, but at the time I just didn't get it at all. I remember thinking, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm leaving. It was a movie called The Gods Must Be Crazy, where a guy finds a Coke bottle in the African savannah and thinks that it's a signal from the gods that he has to go on this quest. I didn't get it. I was 9 or 10 years old. It's actually very, very funny, but The Gods Must Be Crazy for me.
Wow, The Gods Must Be Crazy, 1980.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna have to check that. Hey, that's what I'm doing tonight. That's what I'm doing tonight. I'm gonna watch that after Lakers for sure.
That was 1980.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was 9 years old. So there you go. So I didn't. It's actually kind of funny. I did not get it as a 9-year-old. I got it later as an adult.
Man, wow. It said it grossed 200 million at the time, which would be 1.8 billion. It was a pretty big success. So
it was a huge success. Yeah,
for sure. But coming up, Les Snead made some comments on Cooper Kupp that gives clarity about his future. And should the Rams consider bringing in Davante Adams? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. So whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable, right? So with over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for, well, just about everything: birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth vet visits, and in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. And auto ship, it's a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or any essentials so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel at any time. And Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet, I should say, happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order, and you get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you hear podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. If you're new to the channel, got a lot of new viewers, a lot of new listeners right now, join that Everyday Listeners Club. Just watch Monday through Friday, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. But here, Travis, in our second segment, by the way, just got a little breaking news. You see Brian Allen has announced his retirement Wednesday. So interesting. His 7-year career ends at the age of 19, started 32 games with the Rams, 16 and all 4 playoff games during the Super Bowl run in 2021. So, yeah, congrats on a nice career to Brian Allen.
For sure. He was, he was one of those guys that came in and, got an opportunity based on some injuries, based on some guys just kind of aging out, and took advantage of it for sure. He was a very useful player for the Rams for I don't want to say a short period of time, but a relatively short period of time.
For sure. And yeah, man, he's gonna have that nice ring forever. So great to see that. But Davante Adams. So should the Rams sign Davante Adams? Well, a little rewind. So the Jets, they released Adams. He's 32. He's going to be 33 at some point during this year, during the season. And he's still productive. I mean, he had his 5th straight 1,000-yard season in 2024, 8 touchdowns. He's still solid, still productive, still can make the case he's one of the top 10 receivers in the National Football League. And there's been reports that the Rams are one of the teams that he's interested in signing with, that he reportedly wants to return to the West Coast. He went to Fresno State. He, of course, played last with the Vegas Raiders before getting traded to the Jets, so he's familiar with this part of the country. And look, I mean, this is someone who, throughout his career with the Packers, I mean, just a decorated career, 11,844 career receiving yards, 103 touchdowns. He's averaged more than 10 yards per catch in 10 of his 11 seasons, so that's definitely a strong number. The thing with Adams is the Jets, they saved $30 million by releasing him because he had a cap hit of $38.2 million coming up. Mm-hmm. So with that number, he wants to get another payday, so he would not be cheap.
No.
I think it's an interesting conversation because I think it's what version of Davante Adams are you getting, and what kind of money is he looking for the current version of himself? Does he want the Davante Adams of last year type of money or year before that, or is he kind of accepting the version that he is, which is just a couple pegs lower than where he was at his peak?
Yeah, I'll give you the short version first, and then we can kind of get into the details a little bit after that. I'd love to see him here. I would love to see him here. Now, there are some circumstances that have to be met to do it, but tell me this doesn't remind you a lot of, and it's not a perfect comparison, but the Odell Beckham Jr. situation a couple of years ago where they acquired him. And I know they got him in the middle of the year, and I know that Beckham came with some baggage that I really don't think that Davante Adams has quite like that. But you're talking about a really good player who maybe isn't quite at the best version of himself that they were previously, but the rejuvenation that would come along with playing with in a Sean McVay offense, of playing with a quarterback as good as Matthew Stafford, of being on a really good team, of getting an opportunity to go win and compete at the highest level again. I think these are all really, really positive indicators about why you would bring him in. Like you mentioned, though, D-Mac, The big question is dough, right? The big question is what does he want and what is he willing to do and how much do the Rams have to spend and how much do they think they actually need him to go where they want to go? It seems like a really good fit. The one thing that the Rams have not had in the Sean McVay era is a home run hitter, right? They haven't really had that. Now they've been really good and they've had good wide receivers, obviously Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Puka Nacua and Brandon Cooks, they've OBJ. They've had some really good guys, but they haven't had that. They haven't had that guy that every time that you break the huddle, it's where is he? I got to deal with that guy. I got to find a way to make sure that guy doesn't break us in a single play. I'd love to see what Sean McVay could do with a player like that. I'd love to see what Matthew Stafford could do with a player like that. Now, the money obviously complicates everything, but it's intriguing. And tell me if I'm wrong here. Tell me if you agree with this. This team, this 2025 team that we're going to get here in a few months, it reminds me a lot of that 2021 team that won the Super Bowl. It just like this, hey, blanket, we're going for it. We're going to trade picks. We're going to acquire veterans. Like, we're not going to do that thing. Well, this might not work out a couple of years down the road. It is a big, giant, I don't give a you-know-what. Let's go for this and see if we can win a Super Bowl right now. And Davante Adams would fall right smack in the middle of that sort of plan.
I totally agree. The second that you agreed to move forward with Matthew Stafford and give him the guarantees that he was looking for, make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, you said, okay, it's win now mode all the way. And that's why I do like the idea of Davante Adams, because sure, he's not your long-term solution at the position, but he signals win now for this year and the following season and try to get one more, at least, Lombardi trophy with Matthew Stafford as your quarterback. And I think that you could look at it and say, okay, well, are you replacing one aging receiver in Cooper Kupp that was elite with another aging receiver that was elite in Davante Adams? No, Davante Adams is still very, very productive. He hasn't fallen off the proverbial cliff at this stage of his career. He can still help a lot of teams. And the thing I look at with Davante Adams versus other veteran receivers is the durability. That's the number one thing for me. And last year, he missed 3 games due to a hamstring injury. I think that was more because he was trying to facilitate that trade and he wanted out of Vegas. Yeah. But if you look at before that, he missed just 1 game in 3 seasons, and he's missed more than 3 games in just 1 season in his career. So he's been one of the most durable elite receivers during his time in the NFL. And if he were to sign on with the Rams, look, he's out of the Aaron Rodgers situation. I still think Aaron Rodgers is an average to above average quarterback. But if he were to sign with the Rams, it's saying, man, I was in an ugly situation with the Vegas Raiders. I mean, he looked depressed. He wanted to get the hell out of there. And then he goes to the Jets, was a dysfunctional franchise. I mean, he pops into the McAfee thing with Aaron Rodgers, and they still go on to win like 2 games after that. I think he's looking for stability. He is looking for a ring, and I think you'd get the best version of a committed Davante Adams.
I think you bring up a great point. That look at the situations the last couple of situations that he's been in. The Raiders are the Raiders. I don't think there's any added context to that that's necessary. The Raiders operate like they do, and good luck, right? The Jets were a tire fire. The Jets looked ridiculous. The Jets are firing coaches, and Aaron Rodgers is doing Aaron Rodgers stuff, and the whole thing was a joke. It was just, and again, the Jets are an organization that notoriously runs poorly. They just don't get out of their own way. They keep stepping on their you-know-whats. They just cannot figure it out. The Rams are the exact opposite of those two things. The Rams operate really smoothly. The Rams don't have a lot of noise. The Rams don't have a lot of people that are obnoxious and difficult and constantly drawing the wrong kind of attention. The Rams are a business, man. They show up, they compete. They, even when things don't work out, they continue to compete. They continue to work. You've seen it the last couple of years. After those really slow starts, they still found a way to get into the playoffs one year and win the division another year. That Davante Adams surrounded by adults, Davante Adams surrounded by professionals, and that's not to besmirch him as something that isn't that, but you kind of raise your game compared to those around you. And if this is what he does in bad environments, imagine what he's able to do in a great environment. I would love to see him here. I just hope they can work out the dough.
Yeah, 100%. Look, Ian Rappaport already said that he prefers to come onto the West Coast, right? He went to Fresno State. I mapped it out. It's 350 miles down to LA. So if I was choosing between the Rams or the Chargers or a team like that, certainly would go with the team that has. And look, Harbaugh's great, right? But I mean, the Chargers still have to prove it. The Rams they can throw that ring on the table and prove it. I will say there is a part of me that kind of knowing that you have Puka Nacua, and kind of what we saw like in the Jalen Ramsey trade, a couple years ago, I would prefer to kind of go younger to a guy that you could really pair with Puka and just have, this is a 1-2 punch that you're going to see for a long, long time. Like my dream scenario would be another Jets receiver in Garrett Wilson. If you could find a way to trade for a Garrett Wilson and you combine him with Puka Nacua, I mean, you have your receivers locked down for a long time. And don't try to tell me, being in Los Angeles, don't try to tell me that there are trades that are impossible to pull off. Don't try to tell anyone in Los Angeles you can't pull off a miracle trade for what the Lakers did with Luka. Can Nico Harrison run the Jets is kind of my question.
I was just going to say, who is the NFL equivalent of Nico Harrison, who's like actively sabotaging his own team, and then maybe we can figure it out from there. But yeah, a player like Wilson would be great, but I really do think that I don't want to say that your future planning is on hold, but your future planning might be on hold. It could just be let's throw everything we have at 20. Because look, Doug, they're going to have to hit the reset button really, really soon, right? And you're going to have to do it with your quarterback maybe as soon as the 2026 season. It really could be as quickly as that. So why not take one more shot at it, have one more year where, look, and if you win a Super Bowl, that speaks for itself. We don't even have to discuss what that would mean. But let's say you get to an NFC Championship game. Let's say you get back to a Super Bowl, but you don't quite close the show. The goodwill that would come along with that would allow a rebuild to come in and be fairly painless, or at least give you the opportunity for a year or two to kind of rebuild and restock and do what you need to do. So I think they're gonna empty the chamber, so to speak. They're gonna try to go do what they can do for 2025 with whatever that means. Beyond that, I think that's somewhere down the list of priorities.
100% agree. I mean, it's easier to go through the pains of a rebuild when you've made a deep run and you've won a Super Bowl, right? I mean, after those losses, you can just replay that Super Bowl and you'll feel good all over again. But coming up next, Les Snead gave some clarity on the Cooper Kupp situation, and the Rams release a once highly touted corner that was expected to play a role for this team. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, so I know we've talked about it a ton recently, Cooper Kupp, and will they trade him? Will they release him? Could they keep him? Les Snead told reporters yesterday that it is the least likely option that he will stay on the team. Sean McVay did say Monday the Rams had not had conversations with Kupp about restructuring his deal. So if you are holding on to any hope that Cooper Kupp will be back with the Rams, it is unlikely. And this is based on what Sean McVay is saying and what Les Snead is saying.
Yeah, that phrasing, Doug, the least likely outcome or least likely option, that to me felt like the final nail. That to me felt like it was I don't want to say no chance, but there's no chance. Like even when Sean McVay said, I never want to speak in absolutes, that felt like, hey, maybe there's a little flicker of a chance that they're able to work something out. But when the general manager of the team, and especially we're talking about a player like Cooper Kupp, right? I think you would, if there was even a very slim chance that would work out, you would say, we're still hoping, we're still trying, we're still talking, that you would at least lead with that with a player like Cooper Kupp, and no disrespect to Jonah Jackson, but somebody that just came here, didn't work, and you're moving on. I think you can be a little more, fatalistic in that situation, but the least likely outcome really landed like a brick on my hopes that he might come back. It really doesn't look like it at this point.
Yeah, and they're not hiding it. I mean, they're just pretty open about it. They're not trying to just kick the can along. It makes me wonder if this is all business, if they are not happy with just kind of the social media aspect of this, kind of coming out and saying this stuff. I don't think it really is. I don't think they're going to be petty like that. That's just not what the Rams do. As you point out early on in this episode, they really are kind of buttoned up and go by the book with this stuff. But I mean, this is kind of a lesson to future Rams players that, I mean, look, they're going to take care of their own. They're going to be a great organization for stars to play for. But when it comes to making hard decisions, they are not going to make emotional decisions based on what a player did years in the past. They're going to focus on what they're going to do for them in the future, and they're not going to be hamstrung or held back by that. So, I mean, it's impressive, but it's another reminder how tough this business is.
I think it goes right in hand in glove with what we were talking about a second ago. They're all in the 2025 season. They don't think that he can help them or at least be the player that they need him to be to do what they're going to try to do this upcoming season. And it's brutal. It's brutal, but better a year late or a year early than a year late. And I think that maybe they're already kind of right where they need to be. Maybe last year when the trade deadline popped up and his name was certainly floated out there and how serious that was. I mean, maybe only he and the Rams actually know the answer to that, but it seemed pretty serious. It's a tough one. He'll have his number retired here someday. He's a great player and a great Ram, but it's time. I don't think, look, I guess there's a scenario somewhere where he lands somewhere else and he goes and has a great season and we're all like, what in the world was that? But I have a hard time believing that Sean McVay didn't utilize a great player like that properly. I just don't think that's a realistic, situation. So I think they're doing the right thing, as difficult as it is.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for him no matter what. He's a Rams legend. I mean, once a Ram, always a Ram. But if there's a once a Ram, always a Ram group, and he's sitting on that table for sure. But let's just say that the Rams and Les Snead, they would not be afraid to DFA Chris Taylor. Let's put it that way, right? I mean, I think that this is kind of what I'm getting from them, just the boldness of it.
Oh, boy, poor Chris Taylor.
From that standpoint. But real quick, Travis, before we get out of here, Adam Schefter tweeted, the Rams releasing former Jim Thorpe Award winner cornerback Tre Tomlinson, who will now go on waivers. His agent, Kevin Connor, said it was a, quote, mutual decision to give Tre a fresh start. We would like to thank Les Snead and Sean McVay for working collaboratively with us to make this happen. So, Tre Tomlinson, a former Jim Thorpe Award winner at TCU. He is the nephew of LaDainian Tomlinson. He was a 6th-round pick. That was that preseason where he just kind of looked like a pit bull out there. Did give it some pass interferences, but it looked like he was going to be someone that was going to get an opportunity for this team, but that just never materialized.
I'll put it like this. Sean McVay and his coaching staff saw him in practice every day for multiple years, and he never got on the field. I'm going to trust their judgment. At a position that they did not have a ton of depth, at a position where they could have used anybody that could have helped them. They saw him every day at practice. They saw him every day in the facility, and he almost never got on the field. I think that speaks for itself.
Didn't appear in one game. In 2024, did not appear in one game. And in the NFL, you do not get released in your first 2 years unless the team just doesn't want you. They want to release you. So they couldn't find a trade partner for him. So a little undersized. You feel bad for the guy. This is just kind of a surprise for me that he just didn't do anything. Yeah,
I don't know what it is, D-Mac. I have no insight as to why he couldn't get out on the field, but that he didn't says something to me. That like they were clearly a nope, and if they're a nope, I'm good with it. Like you said, good luck to him. I hope he lands on his feet somewhere else and it works out for him. But he's been here for more than a minute, and it just never happened for him. I think there's some information in that.
I do too. But hey, we wish him well. And hey, that last name alone should give him an opportunity with another team. Maybe just I would just change the running back. Just become a running back.
Just give it a shot.
Give it a shot, man. But that's to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.